Is power, money, and prosperity dangerous to liberty? That is the question we will explore today. Welcome back to Liberty's Hill, where we explore how can we create a world of human flourishing with liberty, justice, dignity, and prosperity. I am Dr. Bill Brannan, a pastor in Liberty Hill, Texas. One day, while I was working out at the gym, I heard an older man complaining incessantly about politicians. When I heard him say, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, I decided to engage him in conversation. I understand the quote he gave and the context that Lord Acton said it in, but to engage in conversation, sometimes we have to be creative. I approached him and I said, "That is ridiculous." He asked, "What do you mean?" I said, "It is extreme pride to think any person or institution can achieve absolute power. There is only one who has absolute power, God, and he can never be corrupted." There was a moment of silence as he pondered what I said. Then we discussed power and politics. I presented a view that people who walk in the fear of God with biblical values can handle the responsibility of power and politics in a manner to be a blessing to humanity. After a brief conversation, I went back to working out. A little while later, he approached me crying and told me that I had given him hope again. Clearly, he cared deeply about what he saw going on in society, but had no vision of a way forward to create a better world. Just the idea that people can develop a level of virtue to handle the responsibilities of power and wealth caused him to dream again of a better world. The loss of hope is the death of human flourishing. One of the ideas I often hear among Christians is that prosperity is a hindrance to true spirituality. Generally, when people talk of prosperity, they are referring specifically to money. If you think about money, it is a form of power. What we're exploring today is whether prosperity, money, and power are dangerous to liberty. My argument is that the right and responsible use of power is essential to liberty and human flourishing, but the misuse of them is destructive to humanity. The real question to ask is, how can we develop a society that is responsible enough to handle power well? In my thinking, one of the important differences between infants and adults is responsibility. Thinking about driving, we can consider it a form of power, the ability to move quickly between destinations. No good parent would give their 5-year-old the keys to their car. They are not yet responsible enough to handle that power well. In America, at 16, after taking driver's education, being tested, and receiving a license, we begin to trust our children to drive, even if their skills are not very developed yet. The idea is that as people handle responsibility well, more and more responsibility is entrusted to them. There is a process of human growth necessary to handle greater forms of power well. I think it begins in the realm of ideas and moral growth. How can someone become responsible to handle extreme wealth? I suggest that seeing our purpose in life as being a blessing to others is one element that would help. It is the ideological and moral framework that uses power to be a blessing to others rather than to exploit them. As we develop a framework of good ideas and develop our skill at using power to be a blessing, we build a better world. It has been shown that Western civilization in general, and America in particular, has a deeply ingrained culture of charity. We have a desire to help others. One of the ways we have tried to do this is by sending grain to Eastern Europe and Africa. Without thinking deeply about our charity and using reason to evaluate the success of our objective, we may actually promote an outcome contrary to our desire. When I was in Eastern Europe, I was told that the grain is all taken by the mafia. In Africa, people complained that they could not develop agriculture because people would take the free grain and not purchase grain from farmers. While sending grain to help feed people is an expression of a responsible use of wealth, as our ideas about how to create a world of human flourishing are matured, we may decide to help them start businesses or help them improve education with those funds instead. The more we wrestle with the idea of creating a better world and are committed to create it, just like a young driver, we will develop greater skill. Is power, prosperity, and money dangerous to liberty? It can be, but it is also a byproduct of liberty. Growing a culture of liberty will necessarily create more power, prosperity, and money. Before Israel went into the Promised Land, Moses warned that the people were about to have to deal with the challenge of prosperity being handled responsibly. The reason is that the ideas and values that were given to Israel would naturally lead to an abundance of prosperity. I challenge the same thing is true today. In cultures where there is no trust, corruption abounds and people live under constant threat of being robbed. They often hide their money and wealth rather than develop and grow it. Self-government based on biblical or natural law combined with rule of law creates cultures where prosperity abounds. It is a natural byproduct. People often associate wealth and power with tyranny rather than with rule of law. I think this is just the appearance of it. Most historical tyrannies amass their wealth through exploitation and theft. They steal the wealth of neighbors and use conquered as slaves. They often like to build extravagant monuments to their vanity, but it is always at the detriment of true prosperity and wealth creation. Think of the cost and wasted productivity of building pyramids in Egypt by slave labor. Lives were wasted building extravagant tombs. The pyramids give the impression of massive power and wealth, but all the power and wealth is used exploitatively. It actually limited their level of wealth. The modern world, as the principles of liberty have been lived out, has seen an explosion of human creativity and ingenuity, resulting in more prosperity than the world has ever known. I suggest that a way to measure the level of power and wealth in a society, as well as measure the level of liberty as opposed to tyranny, is to measure the size of the middle class. Tyrants may appear powerful and wealthy, and while they have a significant amount in comparison to others in their society, the overall wealth and power in society is diminished. When tyranny thrives, power and wealth are amassed among the elites, while the poor multiply. Liberty causes power and wealth to multiply at levels tyranny never can accomplish. With a tyranny, the king's palace may be stocked with lavish foods, while there is famine in the country. With liberty, the tables of all abound with food. My answer to the question of whether power, money, and prosperity are dangerous to liberty would be only in the hands of tyrants. We need to mature a society where people can handle the responsibility of power. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and please subscribe to my channel.